right, so I thought I'd make this video to try and help a little bit. I see there's been some questions about relative major versus relative minor, major and minor, and then how that kind of leads into the discussion of modes. And again, this is a more involved discussion as it keeps going, but let me start with a real basic idea. So if we are in the key of something, let's say the key of G major, what that means is the key of G major, what we've got, G is our main note, and G major is our main chord. And we're going to go to other notes, we're going to go to other chords, but we're going to keep coming back to home base, which is G or G major chord, okay? So the most important thing you have to start with is understanding what is a major scale, right? So if we understand that a major scale, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, is 7 different notes, and then the 8th note just being the octave starting all over again. So if we were in the key of G, for instance, and I just always start people off by understanding the most basic idea. In music, we have the notes A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. We don't have H or I or something like that. So if you think of it like a circle, you're going A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, over and over and over. And that's how you move up and down the piano. Because obviously, if I say A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, that's only 7 different notes, right? So if we think of those as the white notes on the piano, we go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then we get an octave. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, get an octave, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So it just keeps going. Don't worry about the sharps and flats just for now. So if we wanted to start, for instance, on G, we would just move back and we would play G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F. If we wanted to be in the key of A, we'd move over to A and we'd play A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and so on. So we're always using those same notes. Now, the problem is that we have distances between those notes, which we call intervals. So what happens is if we look at the key of C, now the key of C is the only key that doesn't have any sharps or flats, the key of C major. So if we look at the key of C major, we have the notes C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then C again. So if we were to break that down, and again, you might want to use a pencil for this and write this down because I don't have this on the screen, but if we look at that, what we realize is the distance from C to D is 2 frets or a whole step. D to E, 2 frets or a whole step. E to F, 1 fret or a half step. And then F to G is a whole, G to A is a whole, A to B is a whole, and then B to C is a half. So if we look at the key of C as being our catalyst, okay, what we learn is that the key of C has no sharps and no flats, and the half step, whole step configuration is that the half steps exist between the 3rd and 4th notes and the 7th and 8th, or 7th and 1st, the octave, so 7 and 8. So if you just memorize that your half steps are between 3 and 4 and 7 and 8. Now if I play that on the guitar, we can see that if I play C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. You see that? So we can see the half steps between the 3rd and 4th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, or 7 and 1, okay? So with that idea then, we can move that anywhere we want to go. So if we go back to the key of G, we have G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but we need our half steps to be in the proper spaces. Now again, this takes a little studying, and if you have any of my theory courses, I talk about all this sort of thing. But the key of G then would be, so I'm going to play that exact same shape, but I'm going to start on G. So I have G, A, B, C. See that? There's the half step. G, A, B, C, D, E. But I don't get F. I get F sharp. So the key of G gets 1 sharp, the F sharp, and that's why. Because the key of G is trying to be like the key of C with its half steps and whole steps in the same places. And the further out you go, the more sharps or the more flats you're going to wind up getting, because it needs to keep trying to refix itself or reinitialize itself to be like the key of C, having the half steps and whole steps in the same places. So do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do always sounds like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Okay? So that's the first step in understanding what we're doing here. Now the next step is let's take those notes now, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G, and let's make chords out of all of those. Now again, there's more theory in this, and we're not going to go through all of that. You can study that. But here's what I want you to learn, is if you're in a major key, regardless of if it's in the key of G or the key of A or the key of D or the key of C or whatever key you want to be in, okay, the first chord, the fourth chord, and the fifth chord are going to be major. The second, the third, and the sixth chords are going to be minor. So you get 1, 4, 5 being major, 2, 3, 6 being minor, and then your seventh chord is actually what we call diminished. Diminished is actually different than those. It's actually two minor thirds kind of. So it's like a minor chord, but it's even more minor than a minor chord. And again, we won't really worry about that right now. What we use a lot in popular music are the first six chords. So the 1, 4, 5 being major and the 2, 3, 6 being minor. So now if we think about that logic, G would be major, A would get a minor chord, B would get a minor chord, C would get a major chord, D would get a major chord, E would get a minor chord, and F sharp would get that diminished chord. So what I'm going to do is take those notes and those chords, and I'm going to move them across the guitar this way so you can see it laid out a little bit better. So G would be major, A would be minor, B would be minor, because that's 1 is major, 2, 3 is minor. Then I'm going to go to the fifth string here. 4 would be major, 5 would be major, 6 would be minor, and those are the 6 that I want you to really focus on. Now 7 would be over here and would be diminished, and would resolve back to the 1. But I want you to focus on those first 6. So 1, 4, 5 being major, 2, 3, and 6 being minor. So when people talk about, songs that are 1, 4, 5 or 1, 6, 4, 5 or 1, 2, 5 or whatever it might be, that's what they're talking about. They're not talking about a key, because I can do this in any key I want. If I want to be in the key of A, I just move everything up. I got 1 major, 2 minor, 3 minor, 4 major, 5 major, and 6 minor. You see? So that's the beauty of guitar, is you can visually see all of this stuff moving around the guitar. So if you get used to understanding that a major scale is half steps between 3 and 4 and 7 and 8, and the rest of them are whole steps, learn that theory. And then the second thing is learning that your 1, 4, 5 is major and your 2, 3, 6 is minor. Now again, this is all relative to what we call the major scale, which is like the granddaddy of all things that we learn about music theory. So the next thing in line is what we call the relative minor. Okay, what is the relative minor? Well, the relative minor, if I'm in the key of G and I go up to the sixth chord, which is E minor, G is the 1, A, B, C, D, E is the 6, right? So it's a 6 note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So G major and E minor are called relative. Well, why is that? Well, there's a lot of different reasons you may think of, but think of it this way. The notes of G major are G, B, and D. That's what notes make up a G major chord. The notes of an E minor chord are E, G, and B. So they both share 2 out of 3 notes. So they're kind of similar to each other, G major and E minor. Now again, you might not really notice it here, but think about this. If I played C major and A minor, they're kind of similar to each other. C would be the 1, A minor would be the 6. Okay? So we call those relative major and minor, and what that means is, that if we're in the key of G, we get to the notes G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G. Okay? And we get the chords, 1, 4, 5, 2, 3, 6, all that kind of stuff. If we're in the key of E minor really is the key of G major. It's using all of the chords of G major, all of the notes of G major. The only difference is that you're emphasizing the 6th chord. So if you think about it, if I play a chord progression in the key of G major, emphasizing G major, it's going to sound like G major. If I do the same thing, but I start on E minor, see, I'm playing the same chords, but I'm playing them in a different order. I'm emphasizing the E minor sound, you see? So G major and E minor really are the same key. They're using the same chords. They're using all the same notes. The difference is that you're choosing to emphasize the 6th chord, which is E minor. And if you learn piano, we call that relative major and minor. Now, this conversation then leads to the next level, which is people will learn this and go, okay, so if we're emphasizing the G major chord, we're in G major. If we're emphasizing the E minor chord within G major, we're calling it E minor, right? Yes. Well, what if we want to emphasize the A minor chord in the key of G, or the B minor chord in the key of G, or something other than 1 and 6? Can't we do that? And the answer is yes, you can. But you can no longer just call it generically major and minor, because it would be confusing, because you have a bunch of majors and minors. 1, 4, 5 are major and 2, 3, 6 are minor, right? So how would you do that? Well, that's where the idea of modes comes in, is we stop calling them major and minor and we give them actual names. If you're in the key of G major and you emphasize the G major chord, we're in major. But if we wanted to call it something else, we could call it modally, we'd call it being an Ionian. If we go to the 2 chord in G major and emphasize that chord, we can't just call it minor, because it would be confusing with the 6 chord. So we have to give it a name. So we call it Dorian. Dorian means emphasizing the 2 chord, the minor 2 chord, in the key of major, whatever major you're in. The 3 chord then would be called Phrygian, which means we're emphasizing the 3 chord, the minor chord, the 3, in a major key. That's what all those crazy names really kind of mean. And I'm simplifying, but that really is what it is. So hopefully that helps you a little bit in understanding the major scale, relative major and minor, and then how modes then come out of that concept. And all of these things can be studied further, but at least that helps you a little bit in getting the idea.